Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Resonant Frequency. Tonight, we got a little bit of a holiday special for you. We are, as a studio, Articulate Studio, we're kind of taking a little bit of a holiday break between the end of, or I should say, the kind of, 2/3 point of season one. My friend Perspective being the last episode that we've released. And then we may have something coming up in the next couple weeks for Static Shift. No promises on that yet, but we will resume officially on January 7th, which I believe is the first or the second Wednesday in January, with episode 8, 9, and finishing off the season with episode 10 by the end of January. But before we get into the holidays, we wanted to get together and just have kind of I would say roundtable discussion, but there's only three of us, so it's really a triangle table discussion with the creative directors of both the Prime Static Shift timeline as well as the Beat Frequency. It's not an offshoot timeline; like it does happen in the same world. It's just not the main storyline, if that makes sense. So the things that happen in those episodes are happening in the world. They're not the focus, but they're fun little side narratives. So
side quests.
So tonight I have with me the writers and directors and producers and editors and the one composer / sound engineer and the other. I guess you're also a sound engineer, Aaron, but more of an editor style engineer. You do a lot of really, really cool audio engineering to make the episodes that you work on sound just freaking amazing. But I'm joined by our showrunner, Jason Tibor. Hey, Jason.
Hello. It's really great to be here.
For anybody who's joining us for the first time on our 9th Resonant Frequency, tell us a little bit about yourself and talk a little bit about what brought you into any kind of like writing or directing or anything like that.
Boy. Well, there's only three of us, so it's not like we need to make sure we have time for everybody. My name is Jason. I am the creator and writer of Static Shift. And, pardon me, I would just like it to be known that I support diversity in table shapes. I think all table shapes are important and valid. And a triangle table for three people is just fine. What led me here? I think really, just in a nutshell, I think Static Shift is, in a lot of ways, the culmination of just about everything I've been interested in my entire life, going back to when I was a kid. Me and my best friends growing up, and they happened to all be like cousins. But when we were kids, we were growing up in this really small town, and this was the 1980s, so there wasn't a ton to do. We would just sit around and make up and tell stories. Like this was one of the things that we would do to pass time. So I've always been interested in storytelling and performance. My kind of family background is very musical in nature. I grew up with my dad and his brothers had a band, and for many, many years that was their livelihood. Like that was their occupation. They were musicians. And the
band name is the Tibor Brothers. Yeah, you can find them on Apple Music, Spotify, and probably every other online as well, right? You just linked us their Christmas album today.
I did, yeah. I wanted to share it with my friends. Santa Dance the Polka off the Tibor Brothers Christmas album is definitely worth a listen. I recommend everybody go check it out. And the cover to the album was shot. That photo is my house that I grew up in. You can see the door to my room in the upper right-hand corner. So this was what I kind of grew up in. And so then as I get older, I worked in radio. I played in bands myself. And I think one of the reasons that I have ultimately decided to make voice acting and being a creative person my career is because it lets me do all of the things that I really love doing. I really love, using sound to create an atmosphere or a feeling. And I really love creating engaging stories and making things that that are worth the listeners' or viewers' time. That's what I want to do.
I love that. I think that's a really good, kind of love to have, kind of an inspiration to have, and a path to kind of choose to go down. Especially since it's something that you're passionate about it, because we all enjoy what you write, and we love working with you on these projects. So it comes through very clearly that this is something that you're very passionate about, and really enjoy doing, which is always a joy to work with a creative who enjoys what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes creatives just kind of get pushed into their roles, and they don't really like what they do. They're just there to do it, which is obviously not the case with you. Aaron, hi.
Hey, man.
How you doing?
I'm doing well.
Tell me a little bit about number one, introduce yourself, and tell us a little bit about what brought you into voice acting. I know we've covered this a little bit on some of the previous Resonant Frequencies, but talk a little bit more about it, just because now we have unlimited time, so we can just kind of go down these paths and not feel like we need to be limited.
I'm Aaron Sikowski, and I'm out of Central Florida, just north of Orlando and south of the Ocala National Forest. Been here a long, long time. Voice acting has been my life goal since probably about the age of 7. I did not get the opportunity to pursue it until roughly 3 or so years ago, as my kids got older and we had more freedom here in the house, and my wife and I became pretty set in how we would like to live our lives moving forward. And as we edge closer and closer to becoming empty nesters, there is just more opportunity to pursue this dream. Do I have regrets? No, because I love my kids and I love my wife, and we've had a great life up to this point. But it excites me greatly to know that I can now utilize the rest of my time here on Earth going exactly for what I've always wanted. And what a time to do it. What incredible opportunities we have now, as opposed to facing the challenges of yesteryear, needing to show up to a studio, needing to know certain people or live in a certain place. We are fortunate and blessed today to have what we have, and have the ability to pursue our dreams.
Yeah, well, and Aaron, it's really interesting that you say that, because my mom, since I was a little kid, has always said to me, you should do voices, meaning like voice acting and voiceover. And I always thought, well, that would be amazing, but how does one do that? And I remember, and this had to be maybe the late 90s, could have been even early 2000s, I read an interview with Billy West, who I think most people recognize that name. He's done a few voiceover projects himself, as I understand. So here's this industry titan, and the interviewer asked this question: if somebody wants to really do this, what should they do? And he said, honestly, you need to move to. You need to be where the industry is. You need to be where the jobs are. And that was sobering for me. And I think at that time it was very true. Interestingly, my dad, who's now passed, he said a long, long time ago in, I don't know, maybe 2004, 2005, he said, I don't understand why they can't just do this over the internet. And this is at a time when broadband was widely available and most people had it. And he made the argument, why can't people just set up a studio at home and do it? And I said, well, can and do are two different things. And it's really interesting to me that that exact thing is what has come to pass, is that we do have this incredible ability to, with a relatively modest financial investment, set up a really great sounding recording space in your own home, and with the right training and attitude, like you can make a career of this working from your home. And it's, yeah, you're right. It's absolutely amazing, the opportunity we have.
It was 2006. I attended Anime Fest Orlando. It was the first time I got to meet one of my very favorite voice actors, Eric Stewart. There is a point to this. The question was asked, as it is in many panels, how do I become a voice actor? And he was beginning to tell the story. But he made a point, and you just triggered that memory. He said, in my off time, when I'm not being Seto Kaiba on Yu-Gi-Oh! Or when I'm not being, Gauri and Slayers, I have a studio set up in my house, and I read audiobooks for extra cash. I remember that, and I always wondered, where or how you make that happen, or whatnot, but yeah, I mean, 2006. Some of the people that I found to be, top of the game, they were reading audiobooks in 2006.
Oh yeah, I mean it's an interesting industry to get into, and just so that I don't break the cycle, my name is Rob Sogamonian. I am also a voice actor. I also do video production, a bunch of other stuff as well, and I am I've been an actor since elementary school. When I was super young, my parents had me in piano lessons and all that, and so I did the talent show at school, and then I did all the school plays. So like, fifth grade you do a school play, sixth grade, seventh grade, through high school I was in drama, and then I never pursued it. I loved it. I loved acting. But when you're in high school, you don't have very much self-confidence coming out of that, especially when you're a computer nerd. Like I was also a computer nerd, so I was a theater nerd. I was a computer nerd, so I didn't have very much self-confidence. And so I just was like, oh well, at that point it was all agents, right? You couldn't get a job unless you had an agent, and so and I didn't even actually think that I knew that voice acting was a thing. I wanted to be an actor. And I just never pursued it. I was like, no agent will ever sign me. I'm not attractive. I'm not that good of an actor. I'm just out of high school. It's not worth it. So I went into computers. I'm not disappointed, to Aaron's point. I'm not disappointed that I didn't choose it at that point, because I have done so many different careers, and I've experienced so many different things through not being an actor. Having to live, having to survive, having to learn different skill sets to do all kinds of different things. Computer engineering, construction, home construction. I did that with my dad. Inspections. My attention to detail is very high. Real estate, knowing the legal jargon and stuff like that, and being able to read through contract. Like I've got a wealth of experience behind me. And when COVID hit, really what the catalyst for me was watching Critical Role and being like, this, number one, looks fun. But number two, I could do all of this, right? Like I do this every day. I have a YouTube channel that back then I wasn't doing it for acting. I have aviation tutorials and stuff like that up there. I was like, I'm already writing copy. I'm already voice acting. Like I'm already doing narration. Why don't I just why don't I make it a career? Basically, monetize it is a stupid way to say it, but why don't I try and make it into a career? And so that's what brought me into voice acting as as a career. And it's been really, really good for me. I think, just to touch on it, and I know Aaron and you and I will probably do a podcast at some point doing a little bit of a deeper dive on this. The thing that was surprising to me is, it's something that you don't need a lot of money to get into. However, it is still a professional career, so you do still have to invest. It's not like you can. There are stories of people picking up $100 microphone from Walmart that's USB, plugging it in, and making $10,000 on Fiverr or $100,000 on Fiverr in their first year. That doesn't happen 99.9% of the time. You have to invest in coaching. You have to invest in building these relationships with people who are in the industry so that they know who you are. I'm lucky enough that I built relationships with all of y'all. And, we came together as a group and started producing this audio drama, which is amazing. I love it. It's so much fun to do. And speaking of this audio drama, let's turn back time. If I could turn back time. We're going to go back to the pilot episode, actually. And I wanted to ask Jason a couple of questions about what... I know that you had been in an audio drama, at least one audio drama. Partial Veil is the one that I know of. Had you been in any other audio dramas before you decided to start writing Static Shift?
No, not at all.
So you just started with Partial Veil, working with the amazing Allison Cossett.
Yes, and that was my first taste, and I got hooked. She got me addicted. I have to go to rehab now.
It's true. I mean, you're just producing your own stuff.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what it was like. Where were you in your voiceover journey? And it's always a journey. That's why I brought up the whole kind of path of, you can get into it super easy, but it's going to be a journey. Where were you in your journey when you got tapped to cast as the character that you played in Partial Veil? Did you audition for it, or did she see you in something else? Tell me a little bit about what happened there.
Well, I auditioned for it. I believe it was on Twitter, or I'm sorry, X.
No, X doesn't exist. It's Twitter. Fuck Elon Musk.
I couldn't have said it.
Hot take.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Rob. No. So I found the audition, and one of the things that I remember about this audition is that, and now both of you have interacted with Allison, so you know her a little bit, and she's got this just kind of a singular personality. She is just who she is, so hard all the time, and it's beautiful to see somebody out there, especially in the creative space, who is just so open and generous with her creativity. And so this casting that she had posted, it was all like, hey, do you want to be part of the absolute coolest podcast that you'll ever hear in your life? I thought so. That's why it was that kind of thing. And it was like, okay, even if this show would suck and, let's say the writing's terrible and it doesn't, this would be a fun person to hang out with. I would enjoy if
100%.
If there's nothing else of value in here, I would dig hanging out with this person. And she probably attracts people like her to her. So I auditioned for Ray, actually. That was the audition I sent in.
Okay.
And I don't remember if Walter was in the original audition or not. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I auditioned for Ray, and I don't know, 6 weeks, maybe 2 months go by. I was far enough along in my journey where I got to the point where about 15 minutes after I submit an audition, it's completely gone from my mind. I'm not, it's just I'm on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So out of the blue, I get this email and the subject line is Partial Veil casting. And I'm like, oh, wait, that was the podcast that's set in North Dakota. And that was actually, I can't believe I skipped over that part. It was very, Allison was so forward about, hey, yo, this is set in North Dakota for real. And that was what made me think, okay, I have to audition because that's where I grew up. And the fictitious town of Barron would be located probably about an hour or so from where I went to college.
Love it. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So it was okay, even if I had no training or experience as a voice actor, I could do that character because I grew up with at least half a dozen of that guy in my hometown. So I knew how to be a North Dakota hayseed, right? So I thought, okay, I got to throw my hat in the ring, and I have to let her know that I'm from North Dakota, like actually for real. And so she writes back and she says, well, I saw that you were from North Dakota, and I just like immediately I said, this guy has to be in this in some way.
I love that. Can I pause you for just a
Yeah,
second?
yeah.
Was that so walk me, because auditions are always different. Sometimes you're just uploading a file. Sometimes you have a form that you need to fill out and attach the file at the end of the form. Was this that kind of a thing where you had a little bit of a form, or did you email her directly? What was the process, and how did you let her know that you were from North Dakota? Because some people will put that in their slate. Hi, I'm Jason Tibor. I'm from North Dakota.
Yeah.
Or did you send her a quick email? Hi, I'm Jason Tibor. I'm from North Dakota. Here's my audition. Like, what was that? What did that look like?
I'm not 100% certain. It may have been just record your audition, and I think it was just an email audition. So I just wrote a little note with my audition saying, I'm an actual North Dakota guy.
That's cool.
Yeah. So she reaches out and says, I've got
how many don't you knows were in your email?
None, actually. I resisted. I resisted the temptation.
Dang.
You got
and she's still cast.
You got to
That's
save
amazing.
it for the stage, man. I can't be wasting my don't you knows. So Allison emails me and says, I've got somebody else to play Ray, but would you consider Walter Ross? He literally kicks off the show, and he's only in the first episode. And I said, absolutely, I'm in. And so maybe a couple weeks later, we did a live session for that first scene with Walter and Ray. And I did my lines, and then I left because I had other things to do and I didn't have any more lines. But that first live directed session that's what really got me hooked. It was like, okay, I need to do this again. Like, Alice, if you want to write some more lines for Walter in the later episodes, I'd be fine with that. But it was such a confirmation and validation of the decision to do this, to be a voice actor. And I had landed several jobs prior to that. I was still very much in the kind of training and getting my sound figured out phase in a very early career. But to be cast in that and to record, and like Bjorn was amazing to work with. Of course, Allison was awesome. But then to hear the final product and to have that moment where I go, holy shit, I'm like in this, I'm part of this. And, it's maybe 30 seconds of dialogue for the entire first season, but that is completely not the point. Like Allison told me, like people really like Walter. Like they don't want anything bad to happen to Walter because he's just such a gosh darn good, salt of the earth North Dakota guy. And it is hilarious and awesome that was my first ever. That was my first IMDb credit, was Partial Veil. And it is for playing a North Dakota hayseed farmer guy.
I love it. I love that. That's so cool. Talk a little bit about where, and you can give us a Cliff's Notes version if you want, or maybe there is no longer version, or maybe there's a super long version. I don't know. From there, what prompted you to consider writing something for yourself? Obviously Static Shift is what you ended up producing, coming up with, making a pilot for. Were there any other creative endeavors that you might have followed and been like, I'm not really feeling it, and kind of left them off to the wayside? Or was it Static Shift is what you started and it just kind of took off?
Well, there's kind of two ways I can think of that. The first is kind of going back historically. I had a few times attempted to write, like, I don't know, a short story or a novel or anything, but it was just totally formless. And I'd write a couple pages, and it just, I didn't know where it was going, and I wasn't inside the story. So that's happened a few times. And then in non-narrative writing, I've written songs in the course of my life, and and then there's college writing, but I've always really liked creative writing and the idea of creating a story and a world. So in the more contemporary conception of that question, in the time that I've been a full-time voice actor, there really hasn't been anything else. Because I think, and I've kind of told the story before on our Resonant Frequency podcast, but the Static Shift was born out of Articulate Studios. I literally had the idea during our first meeting. I think at that time I was kind of at a place where it was an idea that had always been there, and I was starting to kick it around a little bit. Yeah, maybe I could, sometime and then I see this group and I see all of you, and I'm like, oh, there it is. That's where I can put all this stuff. So, since devoting myself to being a voice actor, really, it's only been Static Shift that I've created.
That's really cool. And I know we recorded the initial episode right after we kind of started, as a group as far as being Articulate, and then we re-recorded it before we actually launched the podcast. And I know that you've mentioned a couple of times that this was supposed to be an anthology series, which for those of you for those people who don't know what an anthology is, each episode is self-contained. It's like a self-contained show in an episode. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, think like Black Mirror.
Right. So there can be maybe a similar thread somewhere, but it's not like characters keep recurring. There's not necessarily a shared world. It's just individual episodes that are spooky. Is basically kind of what you were going for at the beginning. And explain how you kind of, like, what caused you to be like, there might be something more here, because you've said that before. But what was the catalyst where you were like, it would be kind of cool to make this into like a narrative as opposed to an anthology?
I think it was really, I don't know how conscious it maybe was going into writing episode 3, but I know that's really where the turn happens for me. And I don't specifically recall there being a moment or an event that kind of sparked it necessarily for me. But I do remember talking in some of our early meetings about how, like, there aren't any rules. There's nobody who's going to come check up on us and say, well, are you doing this the right way? Are you following proper like, no, that doesn't exist. Like, we can do whatever the hell we want to do. And so, and actually, I think I have to thank Kat Siggers a little bit, because I have a specific memory of being in class with her, and I think I had done a read, and then I think she had maybe asked me, like, who are you, or who are you talking to? And I sort of hesitated and stumbled, and she jumped in and she said, make the choice. And that really, really stuck with me, because it's not just in acting where you have to just make the choice and commit and go. But I kind of realized, like, maybe I can apply that to, like, lots of other things in my life. Like, making this audio drama. Like, I had the thought, this could maybe have legs. And I feel like the person I used to be might have looked at that and said, yeah, but that's a lot of work. And you already kind of committed to the one thing. So let's just see that through. And then maybe later we can go to the other thing, which all sounds nice and reasonable. But I felt like doing that for many years of my life really wasn't getting me anywhere. So I had the thought, maybe I can make more of this. And then the next thought I had was, okay, let's do it. Like, the decision was made. And I had Kat's voice kind of in the back of my head, like, make the decision. Don't sit around on it. Just commit and go for it. And that's something that really, I think any kind of creative corner I might paint myself into, or a writing conundrum or something like that, I just keep thinking back to I hear Kat's voice saying, just make the choice. Make the choice, commit, and follow through. And maybe you change the choice later, but make it and keep the forward momentum.
Yeah, Kat is one of our mutual instructors, an amazing voice actor herself.
Yes.
Currently also has a podcast for not the 9 to 5 podcast. So if you guys are freelancers or thinking about getting into freelancing or entrepreneurship, it's a good podcast to listen to. She and her partner, business partner, Francesca Morago, do a really good job of kind of bringing people into that. Aaron, I want to give Jason a little bit of a break here, although, Jason, you are welcome to jump in if you have any input on this. But Aaron, I don't want to rehash a bunch of the stuff that we've already talked about regarding all of the previous episodes of Static Shift, because we'd be here for like a year. However,
I do ramble that much.
No. I'm just talking about the time it would take to go through that many episodes. And it would, again, be mostly Jason because he's the one who's doing the mainline episodes. But at some point, you decided that you wanted to make your own little offshoot kind of parallel story in the same world, and we decided to call that a beat frequency, because you can have frequencies that are slightly shifted off of the main frequency. That's what we call a beat frequency. Look it up on Wikipedia. That's where I found it. And so you came up with this story for my friend Sally. What was the catalyst for you, and what were the discussions you had with Jason? Because this is obviously a collaborative process, and I know you guys have touched on this before, and I know that you said you just asked, and Jason said, yeah, sure, go for it. There had to be more than that. And maybe there wasn't. I don't know. I would imagine there was a little bit more discussion than that. But what was the catalyst? What was the kind of process of getting the story approved by Jason? And then maybe I know that when you played it back for us for the first time, you had a certain picture in your mind of how the episode went, and we had a certain picture in our mind of how the episode went. Maybe talk a little bit about that dichotomy there, where you had some very specific things that you wanted people to pick up on, and we ended up shifting the episode around a little bit just because it wasn't quite bringing your vision to life, but it still worked in the context of the world. Talk about all that.
So
did you take notes? Because that was a lot.
So it is as you say. The story of how it happened was very short. It was essentially, hey Jason, can I write an episode? Sure. And that was how it happened. The catalyst behind it were two in-story elements in the canonical storyline. Those two elements, number one, was the character Dr. Petrovich, played by our own Tiffany Magnuson, and the other is the effects of the radio waves and the things that we're dealing with in the storyline right now, which at the time, if we go back to the very first episode, it was the disappearance of the young girl, which kind of spurred the behind-the-scenes discussions that we were having with Jason. We were kind of asking, what is this? Is it a portal? Is it a beam? Is it what manner of science fiction is this? It was.
I have a real quick question. You said you wanted to write an episode. Did you know at that point that it was going to be a side quest story, or were you thinking about actually like guest writing a mainline episode and then it turned into a side story? I want the details on all of this.
It wasn't until after we recorded episode 3 that I had that bit of curiosity. And at first I was afraid to ask because it ain't my world. I'm just playing in it. So, yeah, so we have our catalysts. And then after episode 3, after we recorded it, I was 100% invested in what he was doing. And
episode 3, for those who have listened but aren't remembering exactly what that was the one where it's the Matt Kaufman introduction episode where Matt and Jeri talk about I don't remember exactly what
the gala.
Well, the gala is at the end,
right?
But Matt gets the weird phone call at the beginning.
It was,
and then he calls Jeri.
But the event itself, what happened at the gala, is what really spurred that was my hook. That was the hook for me. The events of the gala, the conversation between the senator and Gardner at Petrovich, that was my hook. That's what got me 100% invested in that story.
I love it.
What was your next question?
It was basically like when you wrote it, was it always a side episode or did you want it to be like a mainline episode?
Jason, do you recall?
I feel like you always had a concept of a parallel story.
And was it always supposed to be kind of paranormal like that with
No. I threw together a script because I remember now, I wanted to delve deeper into Petrovich and some of her. So to answer one of your questions, yes, it was always going to be a side thing. Like, you have your Avengers and then you have your offshoots of Avengers, right? But it's all the same story.
Yeah, like you have the Ant-Man movie or you
Correct.
have the Iron Man movie or whatever.
Yeah. So I was Jason was writing Avengers 2 and I was off in Doctor Strange somewhere. So I was doing
Excellent
that with
movie, by the way.
Yes, it was. I was trying to do something with Petrovich and it just didn't work because it changed his formula too much. I didn't want to do that because the formula in my head was already perfect. Don't fix what ain't broke. So
Well, Petrovich is a elusive character to pin down anyway. So.
Correct. And it was too early on. It was too early on to be doing such things. And it's his story. So after scrapping the idea, fast forward, and that's when my friend Sally was born. And there's a whole story behind that in the Resonant Frequency episode. Go back and watch that for that story.
Absolutely. Did we touch in that story our interpretation versus your original vision for how it was supposed to be, how the ending was supposed to go down?
It was a minor. It was a minor difference. It was a minor difference.
Yeah.
It was devastating to me, but it was a minor difference. That was one of those things where I learned. Okay, here we'll go ahead and paint the scene. So you hear the door bust open, right? Because this is when James Allen hangs the phone up with Rebecca Wayne. The phone call gets cut off. And he's like, what the freak is going on? Oh my God. Right. And then all of the crazy Salliness happens on the TV. And then he sees everything wig out and she turns into this monster on the screen. And then boom, TV turns off. And he's like petrified. Right. And then you hear a door get kicked open from somewhere in the house. And that's when he freaks out and runs for Lizzie's room. Originally, and I was unaware because again, we're playing audibly here. Originally, it was supposed to be a mutated creature that was in the house. That's why you hear the sliminess and the drooling and the wet and the blech and the, and the moist, right? And you hear the foot stomping through, and you hear the because it was supposed to be this mutated, terrible creature that was supposed to come through a portal somewhere in the house. And it was making its way through the house to James and eventually to Lizzie. But you heard James get up, run down the hall, go into Lizzie's room, shut the door, and lock it, and then wake her up. And then it plays out from there, right? And here's where the confusion came. The confusion came to where the monster showed up at the door, right? And then turned around and then ran fast and jumped out the window. And that's what it was supposed to be. That's how I wrote it out. And I asked the group, is that not what you saw in your mind's eye? And you all said,
no.
What did you say?
So we thought it was going to be more like a Ring episode where Sally came through the TV and all of the sound effects and all of the, thumping and everything was either her trying to get out of the TV or just sounds in the house or like the moist noises and all of that. Moist was just the rain, like because it's a rainy, stormy night outside. And we thought that none of us heard the footsteps running down the hallway. We didn't know what that was, or we thought it was Alan running down the hallway. And then we thought that the crashing sound was Sally coming through the TV, because then Lizzie gets, as spoiler alert, if you haven't listened to the episode, go listen to My Friend Sally. Sally ends up in the TV, right? Saying, hey, help daddy, help daddy. So we thought that Sally had come out of the TV to abduct Lizzie and then sucked her back into the TV and basically messed Alan up in the process. And that was unanimous. Like every single one of us was like, yeah, that's what I thought it was too. That's what I thought it was too. And Aaron was sitting there with like this look on his face, like, oh my God, like he's looking all heartbroken. We're like, no, dude, it sounds awesome. Like this is a fucking awesome episode. But it really brings to light, not just for our group, but just for anybody. Like if you think that you're producing something and you have a particular vision in your head, it might not be what other people are hearing. And it's a good thing that we all had the same vision, because then that means that you had there was a consistent interpretation on the other side, right? It's not like I heard that and Jason heard people at a water slide park, and because that can also be the case where it's just like there's such wildly different interpretations that where do you go from there, right? At that point, it's like, well, I don't even know where I'm going to go. But we all had a very similar interpretation of that, and it being more of a ghost or spooky scenario setup than being a monster or an interdimensional portal kind of a thing, which I actually love because it all worked out. I thought it was an excellent episode.
There was never a question. Like in the months now that we've had this episode up, nobody from the general public has asked the question, what the freak was that? No, because because again, they're hearing what they hear, but they're painting the image in their own minds. And if it works for them, then then I did my job.
100%. I'm curious though. Let's pretend that we all got the monster coming through a portal. Jason, I remember us having a discussion about this not necessarily being what you wanted the Static Shift world to be about. Portals and monsters and things like that. If that were the case and that's what we had all heard, I'm just curious, like, what direction would you have taken it? Would you have been like, let's kind of massage that ending a little bit because it's not really what I wanted to go for? Or would you have just gone with it and been like, hey, this is actually kind of an interesting direction. Let's see where it goes.
So I have to be a little bit careful with what I say here, because it involves things in episodes yet to be produced, or in some cases even written. So I have episodes 8, 9, and 10 fully sketched out. 9 and 10 have yet to be written. but I know the broad strokes of what's going to happen. So that's a distinct advantage right there when you know how the story's going to end. Um, I believe Aaron and I had a little discussion about that, about a more visceral, like a body horror type elements, things like that. Which on the one hand, that's not the story I'm telling in the mainline Static Shift. However, it's not my place to tell Aaron what story to tell in his his parallel story. And the other thing is, how can I put this? Such an eventuality, had it come to pass in Aaron's episode, would not have been completely out of line with things that will be established in the mainline series.
Okay, fair enough.
So it actually, like, it wouldn't have broken anything. It wouldn't have screwed anything up. It would have changed the dynamic, yes. But yeah, there was always a way to make that work if that's what it was going to end up being.
One of the beautiful things... Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say fair enough.
One of the beautiful things about Jason's world is it allows me to be me. And let me explain that. As you know, not just as a co-voice actor, but as your friend, you know very much, both of you know very much, that I am not a leader. I am a follower. I enjoy coloring in the lines, and I do not find it a challenge to have boundaries. Jason's city, being my boundary, being my playground, gives me more room to be more creative. That seems counterintuitive. I understand that. However, having a space to play helps me to grow as a creative, because it keeps me in line to run parallel with the main canonical storyline, which will never be interrupted. That's something that I love to do, is how far can I go without changing the story? We're not playing with a multiverse. We're playing in the same... It's like I'm playing on the west end of town. I'm a very small... my story is a small group dynamic on the west end of town. Jason has to tend to a whole city. He's got detectives and PIs and senators and scientists and technology. He's got a whole planetary changing plot here. Potentially planetary changing plot here. I'm playing on the west end of town. I am, as he once said, I'm the small family guy. I'm what's happening in the neighborhood. I'm your friendly neighborhood creator. You know, how is what's happening on the outside? How is what Jefferson Gardner, how is what this freaking billionaire doing affecting the little guy? James Allen is the little guy. Lizzie is the little girl. Bill is, for all intents and purposes, he is still the little guy. Yeah, his daddy's rich as freak. He owns practically every dealership in town. But he's small potatoes.
It's a shifty day in the neighborhood, a shifty day for a neighbor.
Absolutely.
Would you be mine?
You know, to shorten the answer, I get to paint little pictures on Jason's incredibly large canvas.
I don't think that it's a counterintuitive thing to say that that's going to make you more creative, because when you have boundaries, you're not going to be afraid of, not saying that you're afraid, but it's going to remove the possibility of going down a path that is going to lead nowhere, because you know where the boundaries are.
Absolutely.
Right? So one of the challenges in leadership, having been in leadership positions most of my life, is trying something and having it go nowhere and being like, well, that was a waste of, but you learn something every time, right? Like anything you do that you fail at, it's not a failure unless you don't learn anything, right? But I can absolutely, like, when you can focus on something, and what is focus but giving yourself boundaries? When you can focus in on something, yeah, you can be super productive, super creative in that space, because you're not trying to do all the other things. So I actually think that answer's great.
100% agree. 100% agree. And when you're playing with stakes, the likes of which...
I only cook steaks.
I love steaks. When you're playing with stakes, the likes of which Jason has created, how do you turn a nobody into a somebody? You've got Matt Kaufman, who's a somebody. You've got Gardner, who's a somebody. Everybody in there is a somebody. And then you've got Sister Margaret. And then you've got Father Garcia, or you've got attorney, attorney Sally Apstein. Small little players, citizens. Citizens is the perfect word. How do you turn these little nobodies into somebodies? That's my challenge. That's my quest. I'm kind of reminding the audience that the people in the city, the people of Central City, are just as important as the Flash who saves it.
I love it.
Run, Barry. Run.
Run, Barry. When you were creating My Friend Perspective, because that was the second.
Let's save that for later, because we got episodes to hit, and Jason has things to talk about. Let's hit My Friend Perspective at the end.
Okay.
I haven't even heard from Jason on My Friend Perspective because all of us were running our flipping mouths the whole podcast.
I mean, that is the point of a podcast,
bad.
right? So.
But no. I actually wanted to touch on a couple canonical episodes.
Yeah. What would you like to hear? What would you like to know about?
I want to go back to the ham radio. I want to go back to episode 2. First of all, now, and this is spoiler free, now that we have recorded episode 8, episode 2 just went to the top of the staircase of importance in my brain. Like, so many dots have been, excuse me, so many I's have been dotted and so many T's were crossed. There were so many one-liners, so many throwaway lines in that episode that make so much sense now. They really do. And the only thing that I can say, which is now to keep it spoiler-free, is pay attention to the things that don't make sense. Pay attention to every freaking thing Marcus's character has to say. Pay attention to what Jen has to say. Because, oh my God, what an incredible... I have to make this comment. What an absolutely incredible placement of that story. What an incredible placement, because episode 2 does such an amazing job of making the listener go, what the hell, man? Where are we? Who are these people? What's going on? And why the frick is this important? And then you come to find out it's the most important thing. There is a reason for everything that's said. So I just wanted to make the comment that, damn, the ham radio episode, it's not Nightcrawler. It's, give me the name of the episode, please.
Number Station.
Number Station. Wow. It has made me go back and listen to it like twice since we did our little recording. And I'm like, oh my God, it has all come together.
Yeah, I'm trying to give people whiplash from like, wait, episode 2? What? That was so long ago.
Yeah, and it's funny because unlike episode 3, that is consequential. in my opinion, 3 is still the most consequential episode in my headcanon. 2, it's like, man, 2 is one of the most important consequences. So
Yeah.
for you to put it there in the second episode, wow. Like you could have waited. You could have slapped that on like right before 6 and it would have made more sense, but
Yeah.
jeez
No,
Louise.
it totally would have. Well, the one thing to remember about episode 2 is it was still an anthology at that time. So I knew I wanted to write something that might have some legs, right? I knew I wanted there to be something with mystery, but I also I wanted to present it in a way that was consistent with itself. Like at the end of episode 2, no, you have no idea what the hell's going on, and neither do the characters. So basically what happened is I had to go back to episode 2 and reverse engineer it to write episode 8.
And you can't even tell. You can't even tell you did it.
It took a long time.
It was such a perfect setup, though. It was, and this is why I'm a follower and not a leader, because I don't have that type of writing capability. My brain doesn't go that deep. Perspective took every ounce of what I had. But this story, this canonical story of all these relationships, all of these things, it really hits home the importance of, if you see something on the screen, there's a reason it's there. If you hear about a story element, there is a reason that it's there. What was it you said about the gun? If you see a gun, chances are that gun's going to go off twice before the end of the story.
Yeah, Chekhov's gun.
Yes, thank you.
Anton Chekhov, yeah, he said, if a gun appears in the first act, somebody better be dead on the floor by the third.
You absolutely knocked that premise out of the park with episode 2. It just gave purpose to every ounce of that story.
Well,
every ounce.
Well, and first of all, thank you. That's incredibly kind of you to say. But I really believe in those early episodes when it was still an anthology, and I, consciously or not, it was conscious because I wanted to make an anthology that would all fit nicely within a shared universe. So the stuff that happens in episode 1 was imagined to also happen in the same episode where episode 2 takes place, or in the same universe. So there was already that foundation. And once I figured out that, wait, it's already in the same city. Like, all I have to do is make some connections and draw some lines from one episode to another. And it's interesting what you said about this would have made more sense in like episode 6. You're 100% right. I might, just as a largely pedagogical exercise, after season 1 is complete, just kind of go through it and think, okay, if I were going to rewrite this story, how would I rewrite it? Like, there's, not to tell on myself, but there's a hell of a lot of exposition in the second half of the season. Usually earlier episodes is kind of where you like to get a little more of that out of the way. So I think, Aaron, to your point, and in the way that I had those ties going back to episode 2, it was, yeah, I think I have to go back to just the reverse engineering analogy, because consistency is so important to me. And if I'm going to ask somebody to devote 8 or 14 or 22 minutes of their time to something, the least I can do is not give them a reason to go, okay, that's just stupid because in the previous scene this happened and then therefore this is like, we all hate that when that happens in a movie or a TV show or whatever it is. So I couldn't do that. And I think the reason I worked so hard on crafting the way that episode 8 in particular is laid out is because I really wanted to honor those early episodes. And what I didn't want to do was make it just, oh yeah, hey boy, that was some weird stuff that happened back then, huh? Anyway, here's what's actually going on. Like that's also like a shitty way to tell a story. I didn't want to do that. So
isn't that kind of lazy writing?
Extremely lazy writing. Extremely lazy writing. And I probably have to credit Ryan George from the Pitch Meeting YouTube channel, Super Easy, Barely an Inconvenience. The way that guy deconstructs plots and movies for a comedic purpose, but it's brilliant. The number of times where the writer guy is talking to producer guy and say, well, and then I'm going to have this character go here and do this. And producer guy says, well, why is he going to do that? And the writer guy says, so the movie can happen. And you realize that writers do this shit all the time. All the time. And I'm not trying to say that my writing is somehow perfect, but I really pay a lot of attention to avoiding those kind of pitfalls. Like Aaron, what you were saying, everything's there for a reason. And yeah, I hope so, because I spent a lot of time making it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's exactly what I want, because those when those elements line up for the person who's listening, that's when you have that moment that you go, oh wow, that's crazy, or that's insane, or whatever it is. But I want to create those moments when people are listening.
Oh yeah. Another thing that I very much admire is that you, on a grander scale, did what I did. I just did it too late. You jump back and forth through time. And I think that's fantastic. And it didn't occur to me until we got to Corey.
Yeah, and that was another one that was one of the big tricks to flexibility is leaving enough details pretty vague so you don't paint yourself into a corner. That the Corey episode Dreamland, you'll notice that there's like very little reference to anything outside of the world of Corey and Mandy and Dr. Ross. Like, that's all that happens. You don't have reference to external events or anything like that.
Not till later.
And right. And I wanted it to be isolated in that way.
The other thing about that particular episode, and now we're just jumping between episodes, one of the things that the reason why that episode canonically is still my favorite is because between you and Rob, the both of you did something to Corey that very few people can accomplish. Out of the gate, you knew as the listener that Corey was screwed. He was screwed. Period. Which makes him a throwaway character in the eyes of, or in the ears of the people. But Rob acted him out with your writing in such a way that even though you knew he screwed, he stayed interesting. Not only did he stay interesting, he stayed relevant. You wanted him to win. you're already feeling sorry for this character, and you're feeling the pain that Mandy's feeling, like she wants to make it better. And we lost Rob, the freak. Let me continue real quick.
Yeah.
What happened?
Oh, Rob had to go. He had another commitment that he had to get to.
Shoot.
For he's got a Christmas live stream starting in a few minutes.
My bad. Okay.
Anyway, please continue your
yes,
point.
Okay. So the way he acted Corey out, and the way you wrote his lines, and then again, but like I mentioned in a previous podcast, your timing between the characters and between the lines, it kept him interesting. It kept him relevant, even though you knew he was boned. You just grew a heart for him, and it's like, man, and that is it's hard to put that into words, because it gave me a feeling of, I care about this character because I want to care about this character, and you've made me care about this character, and I'm okay that I care about this character.
Yeah.
It's brilliant all the way around, from the writing to his acting to your execution of the timing with your edits and your cuts, the music, the conversation. You could feel the pain between him and Mandy. You could feel his defeat talking to Dr. Ross. It's like, man, it doesn't matter. My dreams suck. I feel like crap. I feel old. Nobody's helping me. This doctor's not going to help me, and I know it. So, feel bad for me. And we feel bad for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Well, again, thank you. And yeah, full credit to Rob. Now that he's not here, we can say nice things about him. Yeah, he just absolutely nailed that performance. There was one or maybe two lines where I had him do a slight pickup, but that was really due to me having a new and different idea while I was in the middle of the production process. So that, the first time he did it, I think the script as delivered, he really nailed it. But yeah, and we did spend some time discussing this on a previous podcast. But yeah, I really I was kind of surprised by the reception to that episode, in particular from the rest of our articulate family members. I guess I just didn't realize it would resonate the way that it did.
Well, for me, I can say that it was one of the first times that you had characters be intimate. Not intimate, but it was an intimate setting. It was quiet. It was, as you would say to me, it was an at-home setting. These two are in an apartment in their bedroom, and it's just not going well for this character. The focus is off of what's going on. We are having a problem with a citizen, and now we are drawn into this character. And I think it's the first time, outside of the ham radio thing or the kids disappearing. I mean, that was an event. Those are events that happen, right? But with Corey and Mandy, that was more an event was going to happen, and here's the calm before the storm. And sometimes the calm can be way more stressful than the storm. And I think that's part of why that episode is so darn interesting, because now we're getting caught into we're getting swept up into the suspense of what's fixing to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's funny that I didn't really, conceive of it that way when the episode was being written and it even produced. But I think you're right, and I think there might have been a little bit of a subconscious desire to do something that wasn't focused on a big event, or there's a thing with a capital T that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I did really like the idea of having these characters where really, yeah, you are seeing this intimacy. They're removed of the external world of a job and greater societal expectations and things like that. Those things are still factors, but they're not front and center. So what happens when you take all that away and you've got this person who's in this absolutely impossible situation? How do you make that compelling? How do you keep a sense of tension and momentum going that carries you not only through the end of the episode, but gets you thinking about, oh, well, now what's going to happen? Because that thing that just happened was super weird, and I don't know what it means exactly, but I kind of feel like it might be sort of related to this other thing. So that was, I think, what my mindset was going into creating that episode, is that I thought that would really be a nice kind of a counterbalance to, it's like I love Regular Show, right, on Cartoon Network,
Yeah.
Mordecai and Rigby, and one of the things I love about it, especially in the early seasons, every single episode, there's like a world-ending calamity, or the universe gets inverted, or it gets sucked into the computer in the one episode. Like every single episode, and then the very next episode, the park is right back to it, and it's never addressed canonically. It's totally absurd, and I love it.
Or like, how did Kenny come back?
Right, yeah, every single time.
Every single time, absolutely.
So I didn't want it to be. I didn't want every episode to be this kind of, build up with characters that are kind of likable and pretty relatable, and then something really terrible happens to one of them, and at the end everybody's going, what the hell happened? Like, that gets really tired if you do it a lot. And it when it's done right and when it's placed correctly, I think it can be really cool. But I also, I was making a conscious effort, I think, to have a sense of that balance in the show. And maybe because by the time I was writing episode 5, I believe Sally had been, I don't know if it was finished, but I think it was finished by that point. So I think I further appreciated the value of something more grounded, and how that could function within the mainline story, kind of as a little bit of a pause before we go into the 18-wheeler truck that is the second half of the season.
Yeah, no kidding. Speaking of the second half of the season,
yes,
let's break down Matt Kaufman for me, because I play him one way, I envision him one way, I ship him one way, but it seems to work. Who is Matt Kaufman?
Matt Kaufman is fundamentally just a good, ethical person. He doesn't like injustice. He doesn't like it when people get screwed over. He doesn't like it when the little guy gets stepped on. He doesn't like it when the bully comes in the room and pushes everybody around. He wants things to be pretty welfare and for people to have a shot to do the things that they want to do without other people getting in their way. So, and that was why, in my mind, that was why he became a cop, because he was the kind of guy who saw things and thought, I don't think those kind of things should be happening, and he wanted to do something about it. As sometimes happens in real life with individuals like that, trying to do the right thing got him fired. And so I think within Matt there's a real, especially at the beginning when we first meet him, there's kind of a battle being fought a little bit internally between this kind of the core of who he is, which is a good person who wants to do the right thing, and this bitterness and cynicism that has kind of been creeping up on him, knowing full well that he was wronged and that his life is substantially and objectively worse for it, and other people are responsible and they're not being held to account, and he just has to get up every day and go to work and live with that. So he's trying to make ends meet. He's trying to do the good that he can do where he can do it. But he's also smart enough to know kind of what his place actually is in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, and he in the beginning when you introduced me to him, I took him as this fed up, completely done with everything, done with life type of character, and now kind of having, this is the wrong vocabulary, built him in my own mind. I don't really see him that way anymore. To me, he doesn't really sound like fed up and looking for a way out. It's more to me now. He knows he's in a big game, and rather than see this through and get paid, he just wants to see this through. I mean, you can sort of tell after his first conversation with Tatiana or Lynn, that's kind of where his head was, heading.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think my conception of Matt is that as the series goes on, I always imagined him taking these cases of taking pictures of cheating husbands or, doing all the typical kind of private investigator crap. This isn't fulfilling for him. I mean, I always thought, he makes enough money to kind of get by. And so he's doing these things that are in many ways beneath him, but it's how he's surviving. I think now that he's got an actual case, like a real case, I think that's where the switch happens. It's almost like he's remembering how to be himself again.
Yeah.
Because he's got this mission that is becoming increasingly both clear and perilous.
I believe that. Yeah. He also seems like the type who probably gets a 1 or 2 breaks a year. Like he's like his normal jobs, his snapping pictures and whatever the heck he's called to do will pay the bills and they'll feed him and he'll be able to go have a little bit of fun. But then I figure 1 or 2 times a year he gets a bigger break, or he'll get a high paying client, and then that's kind of like his Christmas. I feel like that's probably why he's still in business. Like there's those 1 or 2 times, like maybe once in March, once in September, he'll get like a triple a triple fee paying client, and they're like, all right, this person's obviously rich, or maybe it's like a super rich husband trying to catch his wife cheating, and he's willing to pay however much, and that's kind of like, yay, that's my
Right.
break for the year. I can go out for steak now, or I can spend
Yeah.
Christmas with my dad, take December off or whatever. That's it. Yeah, I can relate.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that too, we can't all relate to being a private investigator, but I think
sure as
most
hell
of us
relate to being a struggling son of a bitch.
Right. The people I know, I don't know who everybody else is hanging out with, but the people I know can all relate to that at some point in their adult lives.
Yeah, you do what you got to do.
Yep, exactly.
Absolutely. Let's talk about Jeri. I want to talk about Jeri. The public who knows, I love the concept of Matt and Jeri. I ship Matt and Jeri. A couple Articulate members ship Matt and Jeri. I think the reason why I ship Matt and Jeri so much is because Jen and I have such a really good chemistry as playing these characters. Jen's just that Articulate member that I can bounce off of in every verbal sense of the word. Like I can pick up on what she's feeling, she can pick up on what I'm feeling, and it just hits me. It's hard to put into words. It hits me. She says something to me, and I know how to emotionally respond to what she's saying. If she's screwing with me, then it's like a light chuckle, and we're going. It's banter because we're college buddies, right? If she's being serious, then I can be serious back. If she's asking a borderline dumb question, there have been a couple times where Matt's had to literally spell it out for her. No. Put the coat on, throw on the hat, walk down to the car, get in, and wait. Not condescending, just, Jared, this is what I need you to do, okay? Please, for me, right? And that, outside of those moments, I feel like they have a playfulness. And I also understand that the two of them probably do have an understanding that it ain't gonna work. But at the same time, I also feel like on Jeri's end, like she's waiting for something. And on Matt's end, it's like, I'm not there because I need to get out of this to establish myself in this so that I will be worthy for this. I feel like Matt is very much the charts, graphs, step-by-step stereo instructions to how his life needs to be before, and T's need to be crossed and I's need to be dotted before he can even think about moving on to the next thing. Where Jer is like, I could use some scratch. Let's go. Let's F the consequences. Let's go. They're very much buddies. The more you have Jen and I together playing as Matt and Jeri, the more Sam and Dean get from them. I again, this belief system here based upon what we've done. I believe they are the best of friends. I believe there potentially could be something more, but I think they've already agreed that it's not going to be because that's just not how their lives line up. So they just kind of are what they are. But I don't believe that makes him care any less about her, just as much as she's not going to rely any less upon him. I could have this totally wrong, but it's the reason why I play the character the way I play the character, because in my head, if somebody like that, if a friend like that, if I had a Jeri in my life and that's how she spoke to me, I would respond in kind. I would respond with that sense of urgency. I would respond with that sense of kindness. I would respond with that sense of worry. I would respond in a way that would always assure her and remind her, you're cared about, and I've got you. And I shouldn't have to explain this after 25 years of friendship. It's just, we're there and I love you and go with it. That has kind of how I've built Matt in my own head. Like, I've like half method acted that sort of.
Yeah. Well,
Does that make sense?
Yes. No, it absolutely does. And I think this is one of the many wonderful things about what we do. I think what comes through in your portrayal of Matt is a deep and genuine affection for Jeri, which now yours, it's like from a little different angle maybe than what I'm imagining, but
yeah, very much.
But what matters is it's genuine.
Yes.
That's why it's a good performance. Not because you're thinking the exact correct thoughts in your head that I told you to think when you're saying these lines, but because you're feeling something. You're feeling something, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be the right something, but you got to feel something. And you clearly do. And that's, I mean, that's one of the many reasons why I love writing the Matt and Jeri and now Lynn/Tatiana lines, because there is that rapport and that genuine connection is so obvious. Like, it's just as soon as that dialogue starts, and in my head I'm just, okay, here we go. Like, take it away, kids.
And what's really nice, and what's really nice about that is that he doesn't have to be in love with her for her to be the reason why he does what he does. You don't have to be in love with somebody. You can love somebody, but you don't have to be in love with somebody. And I don't play Matt like he's in love with Jeri. I personally believe Matt's at this point in his life where he's ready to begin the transition into settling down. Like, I feel like he's reached this point where he wants to just say to the world, I don't need to reach any higher. I don't need to be the president of a company. I don't need to be a CEO. I don't need to be a bazillionaire. I just need enough for me. And just in case, I need enough for me and whoever wants to take this ride with me. I don't really see Matt and Jeri as like a potential husband and wife thing, but I absolutely positively see the two of them as a ride or die. And I also feel like the two of them don't have to be married for him to do a good, dignified, wholesome, husbandly thing for her. Just like she doesn't have to be a wife for her to step in and be a backbone of the relationship. Because she is very much, her lines indicate that she is very much a backbone of their relationship. In many ways, she keeps him going. Because if she didn't, he wouldn't call her.
Right. Well, and the dynamic that I imagine them having is that a lot of this is unspoken. Like
Absolutely.
They both know it. They both know full well, Jeri knows Matt would take a bullet for her if it came down to it. But, when they're working,
I would expect it. I would expect it. I'd be mad at you if you didn't have him do.
Yeah. No, and that, but that goes back to the consistency thing. Like, I couldn't, it would be totally wrong. Like, anybody who's followed the character of Matt, if that were to happen, would say, what the hell? That's not who that guy is. So yeah, I hope that I have a better handle on Matt Kaufman's personality than that. But yeah, I really, really love the dynamic that has been created between Matt and Jeri. And And now that with Lynn thrown into the mix too, I think that's a natural kind of a counterbalance a little bit, that it in no way detracts from the established relationship between Jeri and Matt, but I think it does add something really, really interesting and enriches the whole thing.
I think when you have friends like Jen and like Hannah, it's easy, and you see the dynamic between us as people. You know, Jen is one of my very dearest friends. Hannah is my little sister. I think it's clear to see how easy it is for us to talk to each other in character, because in our own heads and hearts, we've already established who we are. I don't see Jen the way I believe Matt sees Jeri, but that doesn't mean I don't love Jen any less dearly. Like, I think what'll be really interesting at VO Atlanta when you see Jen and I communicate, it will be very Matt and Jeri. Because that's just who we are as people. That's our friendship. That's our chemistry. She and I can probably just communicate through a few rolls of the eye and be like, yeah, here, this is what's going on. Just like you know that Speedy and I have a very playful brother-sister sort of banter. Like, and the little bits of witty banter between Lynn and Matt are amazing, especially her knocking him being older than he is, which is hilarious. Like, what are you, 50? No, I'm not 50. Shut up. You know, it's that brother sister sort of thing, and it's amazing. And I love how there's this chemistry, this long lasted chemistry between Matt and Jeri, and yet there's this instant chemistry between Matt and Lynn, because there's like this connection there, and it comes from two totally different places, but nonetheless it works. Some from a place of wit and banter, and some from a place of I've got you and you know that I've got you. And it's crazy because listening to the two episodes we've had of Lynn and Matt, you can hear it in our acting. We already trust each other because we trust each other as actors. But we've made the characters believable, especially Hannah. Like, she's already vetted this dude, and here we go. Like, we're 2 episodes into the two of them just meeting each other, and boom. It's like they're Oliver and Thea. Boom. Just like that. It's awesome. And damn if you didn't establish that beautifully. Hi, Rob.
Well, yes, welcome back, Rob.
Hello, I'm back.
We were breaking down episodes 5, 6, 7, and 6 and 7.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, don't let me get in your way.
Crickets.
Yo, no, you were just about to make a point.
I was going to make a point, wasn't I? I think I might have distracted myself. I remember what I was going to say. Yeah, I think with Matt and Lynn, I feel like they do bond, at least in a sort of quasi-professional sense, pretty quickly. The way that I see it is they are both, I think in some ways they're cut from the same cloth. They're not people who are constitutionally able to sit around and watch really bad things happen or watch people get hurt and just shrug and say, well, what do you do? They're just not those people. And I think they recognize that in each other. So I think that's a lot of what draws them together is if you know, there is the banter and there is a comfort level between the two of them. But when they're working, and there's no, hey, let's take an hour tomorrow and let's sit and really get to know each other and talk about our feeling. Like, that's not the people they are.
No, no.
So
they have I was going to say the two of them have a level of intolerance about them. They have a level of enough is enough about them.
Right.
Matt is clearly a little softer spoken, but only because he's older and more professional. He's been doing this for years and years and years.
Right. Yeah. And
whereas Lynn is like, she's a little
young and angry.
She's young and angry, but I think it's cool that you've developed an anchor point for her.
Yeah. And I think with a character like that, I think it can get, without some kind of an anchor, something holding her down, I think it can really get into the kind of the realm of being a caricature, where it's, hey, here's wild crazy girl coming in and doing wild crazy stuff, and ho, isn't she wild and crazy? And then she disappears for a few scenes, and then she comes back and does the thing again, and everybody says, she said the thing. That to me isn't that interesting. Like, it's cotton candy. It's fun for about 15 seconds, and then you're pretty sick of it.
Well, that's what I said before I left last time. Am I coming out? No. That's what I said before I left last time, which is it's just lazy writing, right? Here's our comedy relief. Here's our quirky character.
We call that the Urkel effect.
Yeah.
Then he gets his own damn show.
My.
Did you guys have anything else that you want to talk about with episode 6 and 7?
No, we pretty much hit it all, unless you wanted to go into McCracken, but
we're going to get into McCracken in the next episode 8.
I was going to say, I don't think we've spent enough time with Commissioner McCracken
right.
to really. I already don't like her, but it's just the
I
Matt
agree
in
with
me.
you. I think the beginning of episode 8, I'm going to move on to episode 8, is
we can't.
a really 8. I think it's a really great character building moment for McCracken because we've heard so much about her. Well, you guys have both seen Ace Ventura: Pet Detective?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wait. That's not what I'm thinking about. What am I thinking about? The Matrix. You guys have seen The Matrix, right?
Love The Matrix.
It's okay.
I don't know why I went to Ace Ventura.
Yeah, I always get those two movies confused,
They're
too.
basically the same thing.
Right.
But when Neo meets Trinity for the first time, and he says, "Oh my God, you're Trinity. I thought you were a guy." And she says, "Most guys
Most men do."
I thought McCracken was a guy. So introducing Nettie as Commissioner McCracken is a great character building moment. Number one, because I was like, "Oh, that's cool. Like, okay. I don't have a problem with it. This is actually pretty cool. I just got that." But to have somebody who, I think the reason that I went to Ace Ventura is because Sean Young's character is a transgender man, transgender woman, I guess. Ray Finkel turning into Lois Einhorn. But a very, very career-oriented, like, she's got a purpose. She wants to be the chief of police so that she could steal the dolphin and do all of that. So that takes me to, I wonder if, because generally speaking, you would not want your police commissioner to be a backstabbing asshole, right? But McCracken has obviously pushed people out, at least Kaufman, out of the way to get to where she is. And so I'm wondering if she has a specific purpose that she's, pushing for. Is there a reason that she wants to be commissioner, or is it just because she wants to be commissioner? You don't have to answer that if it's going to be a plot point, but it's an interesting character and a great way to kind of build her up at the beginning of episode 8. Because again, I thought she was a dude, and she was like in the previous episodes, I thought she was just some kind of a jackass, jerk who didn't like Matt, so pushed him out of the way. And that still might be the case. Maybe she's just a jackass jerk who didn't like Matt and pushed him out of the way. But I think there might be something deeper there. And I think that that's a really cool dynamic. Talk to me a little bit about, was McCracken always going to be a female? Was McCracken originally a guy, and then you're like, oh, well, actually, Nettie would be a really good choice for this. Let's just do it. Or maybe that was the plan all along. I'm just curious.
Well, in episode 3, I needed a foil. I needed a dirty police chief who kicked Matt off the force. And I came up with McCracken. That's right, I was watching an old Space Ghost, and they had a competition for have a new cartoon on Cartoon Network, and one of the cartoons was Powerpuff Girls. Creator Craig McCracken. Yeah. So that's where the name comes from. Thank you, Space Ghost. No.
Space Ghost was awesome.
Yes. Big fan. So McCracken did, like, all I had was a name in episode 3. And in my head, it kind of had a sticky note stuck to it that said, had a star on it and said TBD. Like, I knew I was going to return to that probably later. But I didn't know at that time who was going to play Chief McCracken. And then once we grew our roster at Articulate Studios a little bit, then I started to see, okay, now I can start actually casting some of these people that some of these characters that I've referred to in other episodes, but all you hear is a name, like talking to somebody on a phone, and you say, well, Milton, that's what you pay me for. Well, who's Milton?
Yeah. Relax, yeah. Conan.
Yeah. So those are some of those things, some of those areas where real life sort of sneaks its way into a creative decision and ends up being an influence. Like when I initially wrote episode 3, I just had the name. I'm pretty sure I didn't even know Nettie. I had not met her yet at that time. And really, I didn't know. Like, I didn't know how I was going to resolve that at the time. But I knew that at some point, that's a thing to resolve. And then, it just kind of worked out, I think.
What was
amazing.
What was really nice about McCracken, and I finally remembered the name, guys, when we got to hear her for the first time, she had the press conference, and then we move over and we have that discussion with Gardner. My disdain for her started to subside a little bit because she gave me a very Ellen Yendel vibe. For those who don't know who Ellen Yendel is, that was the new commissioner of Gotham in The Dark Knight Returns from the 80s. That's who Jim Gordon passed off the role of commissioner to. And we learn that McCracken goes from police chief to commissioner. And it's sad because you can tell from her behavior, the lines, her conversation, McCracken is stuck between a bit of a rock and a hard place. And Nettie does a very good job at delivering the frustration in that role, because she's got to do what she's got to do, but she's also got to play ball. And I think she knows she has to play ball more for the benefit of the citizens and their safety, but she's also kind of been able to do what she needed to do to maintain her own status. Is she a 100% innocent party in all this? I don't believe so. but it doesn't make the performance any less impressive.
Matt, what are you talking about? I think McCracken is just fine.
And Yindel was the same way. Yindel, once she took the, Jim Gordon's role, she was a hard ass because she's like, I'm going to be the best commissioner I can be, and I'm going to start by bringing down the Batman, right? But everybody knew the Batman was trying to do the right thing, and people, for the most part, who probably knew Matt was a good cop and trying to do the right thing, but she had to do what she had to do. She's the commissioner. She makes the calls, but now she's playing in a game, a big game that it's just slipping through her fingers, and she's navigating through how to handle it so that the least amount of people get hurt as possible, professionally and physically. Am I right in assuming that?
Before Gardner does whatever he's doing with the equipment that he's installing. Not that I would know anything about that.
No.
Follow the damn script.
Yeah. I love the writing in this episode. It's a challenge. It was a challenge to play Gardner, especially since you said you wanted him to get more and more unhinged as the meeting went on. And so it's getting back to kind of your discussion just a couple minutes ago about not becoming a caricature. Like you could go full Joker, right? Like I could totally be, but that's just too much, right? But there is a way to become unhinged and still be controlled, in a sense. Like you can tell that there's something not right. You can tell that maybe there's a little bit too much stress on a person, but they still maintain their persona. And so that's kind of how I approached Jefferson in that scene. So, but the writing was excellent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and then we.
I was
Jason.
just going to say, as the guy who wrote it, that scene in particular with Gardner and McCracken, that was so much fun to listen to, and you gave me a number of takes, and 3 takes, and they were all very, very distinct. You really did different things in each one, and it took some time, but I was able to Frankenstein together an absolutely killer scene, and it was mostly the bulk of it was all from one take, but I did pull from all 3 takes, and I just, Rob, I think it just speaks to your versatility as a performer, and why I just, any old character I happen to dream up, while I'm taking a shower in the morning or whatever, I'm like, hey, Rob, now I want you to play this thing.
Oh, you think of me in the shower. Aww. Somewhere Danielle is scratching her nose.
Yes. Forever.
She just sneezed 7 times in a row.
Yeah, poor Danielle. Thank you. I appreciate that. Those are very kind words. I really do try to, especially if somebody has an idea of where they want the character to go, but don't really, it's not super solid. I like having different perspectives to bring to the character. Speaking of, we're going to get there in just a sec. So for me, it really is kind of an intention game. What is the intention of the character, right? Like, what are they trying to accomplish? So I think I talked about this in the episode, in the Resonant Frequency episode for Let's Pretend We Don't, or I'm sorry, Spooky Action. I think I talked about the original inspiration for Jefferson Gardner. Actually, the way that I played him in episode 3 was a caricature of the CIA director from The Hunt for Red October, the sleazy politician guy. I guess he's the defense secretary, because he's in the White House. But it was kind of a little bit of a drawl, but not really a crazy drawl, just kind of something a little bit like maybe he's from Texas, but he's been in so much of the Western culture, like the Western being like California or Washington, or that it's gone away a little bit. But he's kind of a sleazeball, but he does it for the right reasons. But he knows how to play his cards right. And so that's kind of how I approached him the first time around. And then when we went into this episode, I tried it again, and I think that was my first take. And you weren't super like you liked it. You were like, "That's great," but I want him to be a little bit. You wanted more,
Yeah.
if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Because that was a little bit. It was just kind of one note throughout the whole thing, and that's when you said, "I want him to become more and more unhinged as the dinner goes on." And I actually think I gave you 4 takes because the last one I wanted to go back to
Right. Yeah, you did.
the original, but it I don't know if it worked or not. I think you used the third or the second or third take for most of it. But each one of them had different like different intentions behind them. The Hunt for the Red October guy, the defense secretary guy, is trying to pull one over on McCracken. I think the second one was working for Petrovich more, and I think the third one was working for himself and saw both McCracken and Petrovich as pawns. Even though he needs Petrovich, like the technology, he thinks that he's getting one over on her, and like she thinks she's the one in charge, but it's really me, like that kind of an intention.
Right.
So.
Which that pardon me. That is actually a really interesting take, because I definitely see Jefferson Gardner as somebody who frequently thinks of other people purely in their sort of relative power situation to him. I think he primarily sees the world in terms of most people are basically below me, and the people who are not need to be taken down a peg. Pardon me.
And it really speaks to Rob's ability to get into the headspace of a character, because regardless of where Gardner was or who he was talking to, Rob made it very easy to see where he was coming from. And now, in retrospect, thinking back, you have Gardner at the gala. So Gardner is in front of not just the senator, not just Petrovich. He's in front of tons of very rich and influential people. So he has to maintain that appearance, that appearance of prim, proper, or as the wife said, Danielle's character, owns half the world, very, very charming, but he can turn it on just as quick as he can turn it off.
Well, and at that same gala, he ends up drinking too much and making a scene, as we find out in the next scene in episode 8, where Matt Kaufman and Tatiana, or Lynn, excuse me, go and talk to Renee Gardner and actually ask her some questions about why aren't they together anymore, and like, is Gardner a good guy or a bad guy? And she probably gives away a little bit more than maybe she should have, but it's a great conversation. And I think we talked about this in the original Resonant Frequency episode just a bit, that long driveway of exposition.
Yes, an exposition length driveway. That was so nice that they had.
I loved it.
It's like it's like Fred and Barney walking through the house and they pass the same window 80 times.
I also like, sorry about that. I'm just about to have a coughing fit. I love that Tatiana comments on it in the episode. She's like, "Yeah, I'm glad they made these driveways so long." Or, "How far is this driveway?" "Oh, don't worry, we got like 3 minutes." And then like it's hilarious. I love that line.
Yeah, it occurred to me that this was, again, I had a tiny Ryan George in the back of my head with, writer guy saying, "Well, because I needed them to have this conversation. That's why the driveway is so long." Like, I felt like I should address, and really it's not crazy for the ultra wealthy to have these ridiculously sprawling like estates. So it makes sense if they have to go in like through a gate, they might have to hoof it for a little bit.
It's a
to get to the
20-minute
front door.
drive to the house.
Yeah.
My aunt and my uncle have a she's a dermatologist, so she's pretty well off. They have a long driveway by like normal person standards. It's not exposition length necessarily, but it's a if you're at the edge of the driveway and you're walking up to the front door, it probably takes you about 3 or 4 minutes to get there.
That's a fair amount of distance.
It's a fair amount of distance.
That's a city. That's a city block and a half.
Well,
yeah, yeah.
That's
actually,
my
it probably
city
is.
block and a half.
It's about a city block, I would say. Probably a couple thousand feet. Yeah.
that's about how long that scene is, I think. See it?
Yeah. So it wasn't unreasonable for me
Yeah.
to be like, okay, I get it.
All a matter of perspective.
That's
It
right.
is.
Speaking of
perspective,
Aaron,
we already talked a lot about.
I am going to
friend
shut up
perspective.
I'm not going to be the one to talk unless you have questions. I'm shutting up.
Well, since we already covered a lot about my friend perspective from Aaron and everybody else's side, I'm actually very curious about Jason's take on the episode. And before we really get into Jason's take on the episode, I do want to let you all know, we anybody who's listening to this, if we do create another episode like this where we're going to have trigger warnings or anything like that, we're going to be much more
Forthcoming
about what to expect in the introduction of the actual episode. I did have at least 1 or 2 listeners reach out and be like, that was an excellent episode, and I need to go and take like an hour to decompress from it. So I think that speaks.
Tell me that.
Well, now it's been 2 weeks, so there's nothing you could do about it because I.
Now I know.
But it was. I think that speaks to the quality of the writing. First of all, because it was real. It was gritty. It was real. It's easy, I think, to try to, and I know that you said in the episode that we did about it that a lot of this came from your experiences in your life, not necessarily personal to you, but you've known or it's been in your world. So
I've watched people go through things. Yes,
right. But it's also easy to take something like that and think that you're doing the right thing in writing it the way that you're writing it, but actually thin it down too much or make it offensive unintentionally, or make it to where it's, again, not in a funny way, but like a caricature of what the experience would actually be, if that makes sense. Like it doesn't feel real. It feels like it like you're trying too hard, right? And the fact that I've had a couple people come up or message me outside of Articulate and be like, hey, I'm glad you put the warning at the beginning. I still needed to go and like sit in a cold shower afterward. They wasn't that extreme, but I still had to take some time to like process it after listening to the episode because I feel that is a testament to how well it was written. So kudos to you for that. Sorry to anybody who listened to it who needed to take time to decompress because there wasn't a very explicit warning at the beginning that it was going to potentially bring up any of those issues. And yet we tried. So sorry, but thank you. And awesome writing, Aaron. Now, Jason.
yes.
Your take on my friend perspective. And I believe maybe this is where we had this is where the initial disagreement came up around the interdimensional being that we were talking about just a second ago. Because I remember the original recording for this was the scene with Hannah and Danielle in the car, and they were supposed to slam on the brakes as something ran by the car, and Jason was like, well, that's not really what I'm going for. So I think that's what prompted me to bring that up earlier. We shifted that a little bit, and honestly, I love it both ways. How much of this episode was written when we did that initial recording? How much of it changed? This might be a question for Aaron, just a bit. But then, Jason, what did you think of how it turned out? Sorry, I'm asking a ton of questions.
You better let me answer first.
Yeah, you better go
answer first, and then Jason, you go.
Good idea.
So the only thing that was written during that initial recording of Speedy and Danielle recording that trip in the van, that was it. That was it.
Gotcha.
That was
Okay.
the only part that was 100% complete and ready to go.
And that literally didn't change very much, other than I think removing like one or two sentences. Like, that is the
only
C.
thing we changed was we took the mutant out.
And I think the only thing that indicated that there was a mutant was they slammed on the brakes, and what was that? And I think that was it.
Yes.
And then everything else in that scene is identical, like literally identical.
Not 100% identical. I had to. I then made the choice to go ahead and make Hannah's character a little more annoying. And
Okay,
push
fair enough.
and push the evaluator over the edge with her glittered ass.
Yeah, totally. But it's an excellent scene. The recording of it initially was great, and then after you added the sound effects and, I mean, the different types of rain when they're driving, when they're stopped, when the moist sounds of everything in the car as they're going around. Danielle's gonna kill me after this episode. I loved it. Like, that scene is just perfect. But I think we talked a lot about that in our episode about it. Jason,
Yeah. Hear the Static Shift creator's opinion of this whole episode, start to finish, go.
In the grand scheme of things, like, what do you think about the second Sally episode, the second Beat Frequency episode?
Well, unsurprisingly, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Man, where to begin? Oh, well,
at the beginning.
We'll start with production. The production value. Like, my friend Sally was, I listened to it and I just thought, shit, I really gotta I gotta get on top of it here, because, like, if I don't rapidly keep improving my skills every day of my life, pretty soon Aaron's stuff is gonna be super produced by Butch Vig, mixed by Andy Wallace. I'm
that good.
And I'm gonna be working on reel to reel back here with a 4-track, But it was
not even an 8-track, damn.
No, 4-track. I'm all analog, baby. But really, it was it my eyes kind of popped open, and so that was Sally. And then I hear my friend Perspective, and I'm like, oh, son of a! I really I got to go study. And not that I think the things I produce are garbage, but there were so many things where I just went, oh, that's so cool. Oh, that's so cool. Oh, that sounded so good. As a guy who really loves audio and cool sounds, the hours I've spent in my life tweaking my guitar tone because, oh no, I just want a little less low end there, but I want a little crunch in the high mids, or and I'm tweaking, and then but when you finally get it, when you hear with your ears what you've been hearing in your head, that's a kind of bliss. And when you hear something that is absolutely 100%, it just puts you right in the moment and right in that atmosphere. It's that same kind of a thing. And my friend Perspective is those things from start to finish. So just as an audio experience, it's it's so cool to listen to. So from the production side, I appreciated that so much. But what I really, really liked about it is I felt like in my friend Sally, there was a little more of a direct link to the mainline series. I think it's a lot less explicit in my friend Perspective, and I think that is absolutely to the benefit of Aaron's stories. I have always wanted Aaron's stories, Aaron's episodes that he does, to have absolutely their own character and their own vibe. and their own, I mean, sonically, their own sound, because I wanted it to be a distinct thing. I didn't want it to be, we're going to put different words in the same packaging and sell it to you as a different series. I didn't want that. So, I mean, and this is a lot of the reason I've been pretty easygoing about like just letting Aaron do what he does, because like when people can truly do things that they're inspired by, like when, and I just saw an interview with the late Chris Cornell from Soundgarden and Audioslave, and he was talking about this. He said when you do what you're passionate about, what you're inspired by, what you're inspired to do, given that you have some level of capacity to execute whatever it is you're doing, if you're inspired, other people are going to be inspired because other people can hear that you're inspired. And Aaron was very, very clearly inspired in my friend perspective. And it's not just a tremendously produced episode. It's not that the writing is tight and engaging and surprising and interesting. It's not that the acting is top notch all the way through. It's all of those things that work together and they create, and I really kind of hate this word, but a synergy, this kind of collective energy that becomes greater than the sum of its parts. And I think like that's, and Aaron also heard some of those similar comments that Rob did, about having a really intense reaction to the episode. But yeah, Rob's right. That doesn't happen when you're a shitty writer. Like it just doesn't.
Exactly.
Any hack can write something down and say, "Oh, my significant other is very physically abusive to me and it's a difficult situation." Like that doesn't, you can say the words, but that doesn't necessarily make it real. But because this episode came from you, like who you are as a person and all of your lived experience and all of the things that have kind of shaped you, this episode is so good because you put so much of yourself into it. And that's what I
100%.
love about it. And that's like, I'll take all that you got. Like the more content, the more quality content that we collectively can produce, the better it's going to be for all of us. And honestly, hearing your episodes, every time I listen to one, it makes me want to be a better producer.
I love that. So another thing that I love about this particular episode, just from my perspective, I love a good backstory episode. If I'm watching any series, Alias or The Blacklist or Star Trek, or it doesn't really matter what it is, Avatar: The Last Airbender, like I don't, it doesn't matter what the show is or if I'm listening to something,
Cougar
doesn't matter
Town.
what I'm listening to. Yeah, 100%. When I get to those backstory episodes, the mythology episodes, the lore episodes, those are the ones that I really gravitate towards, especially when they're not pandering to the crowd. And this did not pander to the crowd. It was a really good look at what else is going on before My Friend Sally. It established some really good characters, and went in directions that I was not, I wasn't expecting when I listened to it. I was expecting more spooky ghost stuff, like, because that's what we got in the first episode. And it was so well grounded that it literally gave a different perspective to the beat frequency episodes. So I loved that.
Choices to make. I had choices to make. And it's hard to come up with words for the way I was feeling when you were all listening because my heart was pounding the whole time. It was the same way it was pounding when y'all listened to my friend Sally. I was like, is this going to be a swing and a miss? Because that was a lot of effort for a swing and a miss. And there were portions in there that I thought were an absolute miss, and they turned out to be a hit. And I'll reiterate again, I don't say this with any level of disappointment because the entire episode seems to be resonating with listeners. But I was very surprised.
Across many frequencies.
I was very surprised when the very short section of Rebecca Wayne kind of outdid the bar. The bar was supposed to be the high point of the episode where, this is it. Like, this is what people have been waiting for. But attention immediately went to Rebecca Wayne in the kitchen, and it stayed there. I'm not disappointed about that because, again, it shows that the writing worked. But it's like I guess I can relate it to when a Grammy Award-winning musician wants to write a new album and they are just convinced that track 5 is going to be that next nominee and track 2 takes
No, you knob, it's 2. Yep, it's always track 2.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, this is it. Like, this is my song, right? Track number 5, this is the one I put everything in. And then, like, the throwaway song, which was the second one on the freaking album, ends up being the one played the most on the radio. It's like number 4 in the top 20. And the artist is sitting there thinking, but that's not what I was focusing on. I didn't want that to be great. I wanted this to be great. And that's kind of how I was left feeling. Like, but I didn't try with that one, and yet everybody is feeling something. I tried with this over here. Why did I fail, right? And what I'm realizing is that I didn't fail. I just succeeded somewhere else.
No.
Here's the thing. Jason,
I was just going to say that's so true. You once you create something and you put it out there, it's sort of not yours anymore.
Yeah, it was out of my hands.
And people are going to react to it how they react to it. So for me, what I really try to do is just like not think about it. Like, people are gonna hone in on the things that they're gonna hone in on, and me worrying about that is of absolutely no benefit to further creative endeavors. You're never going to find anything if you're chasing that. So I think Aaron, your approach where you just I make the choices and these are my choices and here it is. And I think when you put something out with that energy, it'll find its audience. Like people will find it and they'll have that genuine, a true response to it. Something that's more meaningful than, oh, that just sounds, or that sounds neat, or that was a fun story.
Yeah.
You'll have the people and it'll be unexpected because then it becomes a conversation between your creation and the person who's listening to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes back again to, Rob, what you were saying about different people are going to see different things in their minds when they're listening to this content. And I think what I try to do is use that as a creative device in and of itself, rather than something that has to be, rather than a problem that has to be fixed.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think that, like, the fact that people gravitated toward, so breaking the episode down, it is what, 6 scenes?
I don't know.
However many scenes it is. It starts with the lawyer room. Then it goes into the kitchen. Then it goes into Bill. Then it goes into.
It's Lizzie running from Sally, which that was supposed to be my hook, which I hope hooked.
Yeah, I think it did.
The lawyer, the kitchen, the playroom. It was the same. That's the same.
It's the same scene.
That's the same scene, but
Yeah.
the kitchen, the bar, the van, the lawyer's office, the house.
Right.
No, the dream.
The dream.
The house.
And the house.
The conclusion.
So whatever that is, let's say 7. When you have 7 excellently written scenes and excellently produced scenes, and the fact that, people tend to gravitate towards scene 2 instead of scene 5, they're both excellent scenes, right? It's not a failure on any part of any of those because they're all very well done. It's just people tend to identify with this one better, right? So
it's a matter of connectivity. It's a matter of connectivity. In reflection,
you might say it's a matter of perspective.
In reflection, and I spoke about this on the last podcast, is that scene that scene with her in the kitchen, that was just that was a conversation that my mom had to listen to every other Sunday morning with somebody she was very concerned with. So to me, in my own brain, in my own creative space, that was just natural. Because that was my past. Now I can understand why some of our friends or some of the listeners may have found that triggering or may have found that to be very effective. Well, because now it came from the realest of places. Whereas the bar is a very George McFly, Biff Tannen in the parking lot moment where you're just waiting for this son of a bitch to get knocked out. And then I award I reward the listeners with this dude catching it. But let's face it, that's not as real as the phone conversation, which in our society, especially in the 80s, that was a very common thing. And that's also something people would like to forget, but it was a very hard reminder. So I can absolutely see how folks connected with it. At the moment, as we were listening and when folks were commenting, I was kind of taking it a little hard, like, damn, I put so much more work into this end, though. But after a couple of weeks now, and we have the responses we got, and I've actually taken time to kind of look back and see where my headspace was as I was putting the episode together. I get it now.
Well, the 2 comments that I get are triggering and I hate Bill. And I think that the fact that you wanted, that was one of your goals, was you wanted people to hate Bill. So mission accomplished. In any case, I think the episode is awesome. I love every episode that we've done. Of course, there are the standout ones, episode 2, not episode 5. I'm kidding. But
wow.
Yeah, I know, right? But I think that we have, I mentioned in a previous podcast, I go back and I listen to them from the beginning. Not all the time, not all the time, but once a week, I'll go back and just kind of listen through, and I'll just be like, wow, we built this. And I think it's a good production.
They get me through the gym. I mean, I'm entertained and it just gets better. The writing gets better. The production gets better. The acting gets better. And the chemistry in our family gets better.
Yeah, 100%. And this is where we're at on our first audio drama. Can you imagine in 10 years what we'll be producing?
Next year.
Yes, and 10 years from now.
It'll
be badass.
I mean, decisions have been made going into next year. This has definitely inspired me to keep going.
100%. 100%. Was there anything else that you wanted to touch on with episode 9, my friend Perspective?
When Jason had mentioned, maybe I should step up my game with the production, whatnot, I actually had the very same feeling as I started to reach the end of listening to the first season of Partial Bail. I was listening to it, and I would go back, and because I would listen to our stuff and their stuff side by side. I would go in on a Monday and I'd continue. I was binging Partial Bail, and I love Partial Bail. Absolutely amazing. 1, because I want to support Jason, but 2, as as the episodes continued, it just hooked me more and more. It was a very fascinating story. But as the episodes continued to get better, so did the production value, and they were doing things that I hadn't thought of doing. There were choices made that I hadn't thought of, and there were things that they did that I didn't think were a great idea, and there were things that they did that I thought was freaking genius. Elements, things in ambience, things in the atmosphere, simple things like the difference in reverb from room to outside to inside of a bigger building, whatever, things like that, inside of a vehicle, or maybe choosing to leave something out because maybe Allison wanted to put more focus on the conversation, making those difficult choices. Going into my friend perspective, I wanted to learn those things. Turns out I already knew those things. I just wasn't implementing them because I was lazy. But there was some new things I wanted to learn. But yeah, that's the feeling I had. Like I had that same feeling. Like, damn, I mean, I need to step. If I want Beat Frequency to succeed in 26, this is what I got to do. I don't necessarily have to match what she's doing, but I certainly want to match the effort and make certain scenes work. Whether it's maybe less is more, right? And if I have to learn something new, I got to learn something new. After some coaching with my new coach, Nate Beagle, I've learned the value of utilizing stereo. Ta-da! Shocker! I wasn't using stereo up till now, but look how effective mono was for me up to this point. Right?
Yeah.
So, and then the crossfading, like having the vans and the cars move from your left to your right in your headphones. It's like we are now fully immersed. So I was presented with the challenge of fully immersing you into this world, keeping the conversations interesting. A lot I did intentionally. Apparently much I did unintentionally. And still not oversaturating certain elements of the episode. I didn't want Mr. Allen to be oversaturated. I didn't want the whole left to right speaker thing to be oversaturated. So it was a lot of lessons. It was a lot of risks. It was a lot of fear. And in the midst of all this, there were many, many things I didn't realize I was doing. I had no clue I was doing it. I had no clue how triggering I made certain things because in my own brain, it was just my past. Well, and that's kind of sad if you think about it. Like something so triggering to me was just another Sunday morning.
No, I don't think so. I struggle with I don't want to say I'm very good at compartmentalizing things. I'll put it that way. Based on my childhood, I can literally turn my emotions off. So if I'm in a situation where a lot of really bad shit is going down, I can focus and ignore all of the emotional attachment to everything and just dial in on what needs to happen and do it.
Yeah. I get it.
So I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing unless I emotionally detach from everybody at all times, right? Like, so I don't think that it's a bad thing that that's, I wouldn't even say that that's normal for you. It just is what it is, right?
Thank you.
So I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's just a unique perspective on, not to bring up perspective, that was not meant to be a pun.
No,
but I think
fine.
it's just a unique perspective on that type of an interaction.
I think it's good to recognize that folks didn't understand where my head was, and it's good for me to understand that I don't know where folks' heads are when they listen. And,
sure,
and
but I also think that
it's a good reminder that I can't prepare for everything.
Yeah, right. Just do
I can't please everybody. I'm not saying that people's reactions are bad, because they weren't bad.
Yeah.
And if people were triggered, I mean, every Netflix show is triggering nowadays.
Exactly. and I think that's also why I'm saying it's not a bad thing, right? Because it's like, you write what you know, and
We get what we get.
yeah, it's a good episode either way. We did put a little bit of a warning in the show notes and also the disclaimer before the episode, so we knew going into it that it was going to have sensitive topics. So if and also I'm not trying to devalue people's reactions to it. So I mean, again, if you were one of the people who listened to the episode and got a visceral reaction from it, sorry.
No, but
yet,
it's good to clarify that we are aware of your reaction, but
100%.
It was not our intention to make you feel some kind of way. It was our intention to make you feel.
Yes,
that's a better way to put it. Jason, do you have final thoughts before you got to go?
We were all just a few moments ago talking about, what's coming next year, what's coming in 5 years and 10 years. And I think for me, that's the one thought that is always, it's like hanging up on a big sign in the back of my mind. So it's always kind of there, is like, this is the first audio drama I've ever attempted, ever in my life. And not trying to paint myself as just some kind of a rank amateur who doesn't know anything at all. But I mean, Aaron, I know it's true for both of us. If you look at what we were producing a year ago and what we're producing today, look at the quality difference. Like, the things that we're producing today are leaps and bounds ahead of what we were capable of, a year ago, 2 years ago. So I'm like, as we go into next year, as we start looking at the mainline Static Shift season 2, that's going to be coming up, production early 2026. Yeah. I'm shooting for starting to actually produce episodes, maybe sometime in end of Q1, start of Q2.
We think a lot alike.
Yeah. So we've got things that are going on, and we're only going to get better, and we're only going to get more adept at our craft, and we're only going to get better about doing things in a way that is not only interesting for our audience, but thoughtful and respectful of them. Everything that we're doing is just going to keep getting better. So I'm very, very much looking forward to what Articulate Studios will do in 2026 and beyond.
I agree 100%. And I guess to wrap up my end of things, first and foremost, I will say again for the 35th time, thank you for letting me play in your world. Because without your world, I have no clue what I would have done. But I'm happy to have been able to take something as small as a neighborhood, a singular house off a country road somewhere in your city, and build it into whatever the hell this is. Because apparently it's growing into something great, and it's quickly growing out of my control. And I think that's going to be for the best. It's going to morph, it's going to evolve, it's going to change, it's going to make people sad, happy, angry, joyful, victorious, pissed off at me, whatever it's going to do, as long as it makes them feel, as long as it keeps them immersed, and as long as I continue to be inspired and stay immersed and keep people immersed, then I've done my job. And that's all I want to do, is just at the end of it all, have somebody look to me and say, you did it. You did it. Because I'm simple. From to the south of the Ocala National Forest in a redneck-ass village in the middle of town, in the middle of the freaking woods, here I am. and all I want to do is just make one person feel. I think this year, this entire family has managed to do that in one way or another, in 10 ways or others. There has been no shortage of unbelievable talent that has come out of this family, and I am every single day grateful for the folks who have stepped up to help you, to help me, to bring your city to life. Yeah, great things are coming. And
yes, they are.
Every member of this family is going to make it great. And I'm grateful for the two of you, because you keep me inspired, you keep me on my toes, and you say what you need to say to me, whether I agree or not, whether it hurts my feelings or not. I'm still getting up the next day and kicking something's ass that's in my way.
100%. That's all we can do. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me tonight on this Creatives episode of Static Shift Resonant Frequency. We were definitely able to focus on kind of some of the creative decisions, some of the work that went into developing Static Shift as a series, some of the inspirations behind both of your episodes, and kind of look a little bit to the future about what might be coming down the pike. Again, Resonant Frequency is on the Articulate Studios podcast, so if you're listening here, we are going to be creating other podcast shows, so not just Static Shift and related items. We have, I think, 2 other projects in active development, one that is still an idea, and then a couple of other things that we're working on, but this is going to be the place to, number one, learn about all those things, hear discussions about all those things as we develop them, as we release episodes that come out for them. And yeah, thank you all for joining us on this journey. Happy holidays. We are going to be taking a short holiday hiatus. We announced that over on the Static Shift podcast. So consider this our announcement here as well, if you've made it this far in this 2.5-hour podcast episode. We're probably going to come back the weekend after the 7th of January. That's when we're going to start picking up with episode 8, 9, and 10. So we'll resume Resonant Frequency when we have more frequencies to talk about. And until next time, this has been Aaron Sikowski, Rob Sogomonian, and last but certainly most important, Jason Tibor, wishing you all a happy holidays, whatever you celebrate, however you celebrate, even if you celebrate nothing. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Diwali, whatever it is that you celebrate. We love you. We love that you are here with us to experience all of our stuff, and we will see you after the holidays as we resume Static Shift.
Take care,
Have
everyone.
a great night. Say goodbye, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.